So on to the second video on everything you need to know about the different kinds of nodes. If you missed the first video, I'll put a link to it here. That was on the economic node, and today we'll be looking at the scientific node type. The scientific node type is for those that are going to love crafting and artisanship, and they will get to build way more different types of technology and weapons, and there'll be a hub for creating the most unique items in Vera. They'll probably work very well with the economic nodes and the militaristic nodes, because they'll want to sell weapons and armor to the militaristic nodes, and the economic nodes will want the rare items that they're creating. Upon first glance at a scientific node, players will find scholars on an expedition out in the wilderness requesting aid in finding alchemical or natural reagents. If you should choose to help them, you may progress a scientific node beyond a lowly expedition into something magnificent. Specialization in artisanship and construction mechanics are granted through many of the NPC merchants and through the ancillary quest points within the scientific node type. This will unlock abilities within many professions and allow specialization in the gathering, processing, and crafting aspects of the artisan system. So the best crafters, the fastest gatherers, will all be from scientific nodes. Now, every different node has a unique building that unlocks at level 3, and for the scientific node, this building is a place of learning. At the village stage, which is the level 3, this building is the library, and it grants several perks. The first perk is a history of narrative events and when they occurred within the server. So that's just quite cool, because it means that any new players joining the server will venture to a scientific node to see the story of that server, and also if you complete a major server quest, you'll find yourself written into the narrative of the server in a local library. The next perk is locations and the last known quantity of gatherable resources. This is going to be key for key resources such as mithril, if that's a rare resource, or I'm not quite sure of what the rare resources in Ashes of Creation will be, but it is clearly going to be vital to know where the last known quantity of them were. Again, this will work quite well with the economic node, because they're going to want to know where the gatherable resources are as well, so they might work in tandem with this scientific node. The next perk will be the locations and inhabitants of new dungeons or points of interest that are spawned. This is going to be crucial for the major server storylines. When different people band up to try and complete a server quest, the scientific node is going to be the first to know exactly where to go, which will mean that their nodes may get legendary mythic items that can help out the node. The next perk will be Runic power stones for armor, which means that craftsmen that make armor will be able to put more power into them than other nodes could do as easily. The next perk is common armor and weapon recipes level 25 and under, which means that all crafters that are making weapons and armor in a scientific node will be able to learn how to do so far more easily than any of the other nodes. This is how they'll be working in tandem with the military nodes, because if all of the armor and weapon crafters in a scientific node can make quite high leveled armor, at least for the early game, fairly easily, then the military node is going to want to be working with them. At the level 4, which is the town stage, the library upgrades into a college. This also has several perks, including the previous ones that were offered. The first perk is component identification for non-legendary item deconstruction, which means if you find a legendary item, you win it off someone, you trade it, or you loot it, you can know exactly what it's made out of if you want to deconstruct it, and then you can make your own legendary item. The next perk is certification of tier 1 building schematics, which is going to be essential for building within the node and also freeholds. The next section will be unique and rare drop information for surrounding areas. This, of course, is just going to be useful to know where the best loot is. The next perk will be concentrated essences for the creation of armor enchantment stones. Again, this will be key for artisans. It will mean that anyone that's an enchanter that makes armor more powerful will just be able to do this far more easily, because they already have the concentrated essence for creating that on hand. After this, the next perk is Runic power stones for weapons. I'm guessing that they're just going to be more powerful than the ones at the level 3 stage. The next perk is common armor and weapon recipes level 35 and under, so anyone within the scientific node that's crafting armor and weapons can just now do so far more easily. And the final perk is common glyphs for the creation of accessory enchantment scrolls. And I'm guessing this means that someone that is not necessarily an enchanter can buy an enchantment scroll and enchant their weapon. This will be key for trading with all the nearby nodes around them, as they might not have as many enchanters because it will be harder to become an artisan, and so will want to buy these enchantment scrolls. At level 5 stage, which is the city stage of a node's development, this becomes a university. They have all the perks of the previous node levels, and the following. Number 1, we have component identification for legendary item deconstruction, so you can now take even more powerful weapons and know exactly what's in them. The next perk will be certification of tier 2 building schematics, so you can build bigger buildings within a node and also better freeholds. The next perk will be concentrated essences for the creation of weapon enchantment stones, so they will become even more powerful. The next perk will be runic power stones for accessories. I'm not quite sure how this would work. It's potentially that an accessory is something like a ring or a necklace or a cloak, and that you can then give that some sort of magical ability. The next perk will be common armor and weapon recipes, level 45 and under. So at the level 5 city stage, anyone crafting weapons and armor within the scientific node can do so very easily and can create really quite powerful armor. The next perk is certification of freehold adjacency bonuses for building. This means that your freehold will get an extra building next to it. For example, if it's a lumber mill, they might have an extra storage room or something like that, basically just meaning that your freehold is going to become better. The next perk will be common glyphs for the creation of armor and weapon enchantment scrolls. This basically just means that the scrolls you make for armor and weapon enchantments are going to become more powerful. And the next perk is Artisanship Mastery Qualifications. Now I'm guessing this will allow you to unlock all sorts of crafting abilities that no one else has. And finally, at the level 6 stage, which is the Metropolis stage of a node's development, we have the Academy. You get all of the perks from the previous nodes, including the following. First perk is components for legendary item repair. This is the first perk we've seen that allows you to repair items and the components needed for them. So it basically means you can take any of the best items, whether they're armor or weapons, whatever they are, in the entire game, and they're never going to run out. You can always repair them because you know exactly what needs to go into this. So if you loot from a boss and you get a legendary sword, you're going to want to know someone in a scientific node at level 6 because it means that this weapon will never break down. The next perk is certification of tier 3 building schematics. So again, city buildings and freehold buildings are going to get even bigger and more efficient. The next perk is concentrated essence for the creation of accessory enchantment stones. Again, very similar to the enchantment stones before, but even more powerful. The next perk will be common armor and weapon recipes, level 50 and under. So anyone in a node can now make pretty good, I would say intermediate, the kind of level where you've been playing the game for a long time, and anyone can make it for anyone. So a level 6 Metropolis stage scientific node will more or less be dominating the supply of weapons and armor to everyone nearby. The next perk will be legendary glyphs for the creation of armor and weapon enchantment scrolls. So you can now make legendary scrolls for legendary enchantments on weapons and armor. The next perk will be profession mastery qualifications, unlocking even more different crafting, artisan and gathering abilities. The next perk will be relic and legendary crafting benches. This will mean that master crafters within the node can start crafting the best relics and legendary items in the entire game, which is going to be really cool from just a role-playing perspective and also from where you're going to want to get your best items in the game. This will turn a scientific node into a hub for all the nodes around it, because if there's any conflict between the other nodes or anyone wants to go and do a server boss fight, they're going to want to go to one of the master crafters. The next perk is legendary freehold schematics. Legendary freehold schematic certificates. God, it seems every video there's a word I seem to stumble around on. Legendary freehold schematic certificates. Basically meaning that the freeholds can become the best they'll possibly be. They'll be the biggest they can be and the most efficient they'll be, and they'll have the best furniture. Now onto the node's superpower. Every single node has its own superpower based on the type of node it is, whether it's scientific, economic, military, or religious. And the scientific node superpower is teleportation. So citizens of a Metropolis stage scientific node can use this teleportation ability to teleport to any vassal node of the scientific node. This means that scientific nodes are going to want to have as many people bordering them as possible. So if you have 5 other nodes that are bordering you, this means via the scientific node, you can teleport them to any one of the vassal nodes. Bear in mind that this ability stops with a specific vassal if the scientific node is at war with that vassal. Otherwise, it could be completely overpowered. You could just teleport in and fight them. As well as this, citizens of the vassal nodes can teleport to the metropolis scientific node, as well as the scientific node being able to travel to them. So you've basically got quick travel to any one of the nodes surrounding the scientific node. You can go in a single play session, you could go between 5 different nodes, including the scientific node. As well as this, if there are multiple scientific metropolises on a server in the land of Vera, then an airship will provide faster travel between those scientific metropolises. So even though it won't be fast travel as such, it will be fast travel across the land. This ability will also be available for the vassal citizens, but I'm almost sure it will only be to the scientific nodes and not to the other vassals. As well as this, just like with the teleportation, if these 2 scientific metropolises become at war, then the airships would shut down. So if you were to sum up what the real perks of the scientific node is, it would be a 2-pronged approach. The first of which is they can craft the best weapons and the best armor and the best buildings in the game, as well as the best enchantments and magical artifacts. You know, if you want good gear, the scientific node is the place to go. As well as this, they're going to be the first to know where all the good drops are and where the good fights are. So the scientific node are going to be pushing the story of the node forward. They're going to be the first one on the scene at the boss fights if they're doing their job properly and behaving in accordance with the server. It's very possible that you could get a tyrannical scientific node that's going to war with everyone and doesn't care at all about beating the server's bosses, but of course that remains to be seen on each individual server. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the explanation of everything you need to know. Have an amazing day, and thank you.